The United States became my fifth birthday present at the age of 5. Walking the streets of Rio, my parents tell a story of when I gave one of my leftover foods to a homeless person. It was one summer. It just started to skills started to come. The goals just started to come. 7th and 8th grade, junior high, those were some pretty key developmental times for me.
Hey guys, welcome to a special edition of the Inside Scoop. My name is Neil Crawford. I'm your host and also the founder of Anytime Soccer Training. If you're not familiar with the Inside Scoop, it's a podcast dedicated to helping parents learn about the soccer pathways that would be available to their child if they lived in another city around the world. And this show is brought to you by Anytime Soccer Training. Anytime Soccer Training is the only training program with well over 5,000 training videos that covers all the major individual skill areas. And I have a special guest for you guys today. He's an active member of the soccer community, active member of the Facebook group. Jesse, I kind of say you're trying to spread the gospel. You're almost like a coach slash evangelist when it comes to focusing on the fundamentals, making sure your kid loves the game, listening to them, focusing on those things that matter, free play, unstructured play. You're constantly reminding us of those things, right?
Right.
And I thought it would be fun. Let me just say, I thought it would be fun to get you on the show to give more context to the things that you post. So Coach Jesse, I'm going to try this. Novatski.
You got it.
Welcome to the Inside Scoop. Introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me, Neil. My name is Coach Jesse. I've had players, parents, others refer to me as Coach Jesse. Novatski could be difficult for others to say. Growing up, my friends called me Nova. Jesse Nova. So that was the nickname. And then as a coach, I stuck with it. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that. My first car was a Nova, which I had no idea what Nova meant, but my first car was a Nova, and that thing was old reliable. That was an old reliable car. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna post a picture of it when I can find it. We're going back into the 90s. That car was old reliable. So welcome to the show, Jesse Nova. So Jesse, let's start off with, can you start by sharing, so you have a unique journey, being born in or near São Paulo, Brazil, which is cool, and then migrating or immigrating to the States. And how did being born there and then your early life that you talk about quite a bit, how did that and those experiences sort of shape your attitude towards soccer? And then how does that influence the messages that you share with us, parents and young people?
Right. I don't think I really had so much of an attitude or a feeling towards soccer probably until I was closer to my pre-teenage years. So having been born in Brazil, there's definitely a lot of elements of survival. I was an orphan, lived in an orphanage for about 2 or 3 years. I was one of the lucky ones that was adopted. The United States became my fifth birthday present at the age of 5. Some of the stories that my parents reflect on from the United States, those that adopted me, that reflect on just the happiness of having a family. Me and my hunger, physical hunger, in terms of when they first took me out to eat. I was very, very hungry. Um, Walking the streets of Rio, my parents tell a story of when I gave one of my leftover foods to a homeless person. So those things right there, reflecting on those memories or just those stories, is really impactful in terms of the character, the person that I became as a young student, just as a young person in the United States. Coming to the United States, I wanted to be very much American. I didn't want to feel different, didn't want to be different. No one wants to be different. So I learned the language very, very quickly, learned English in about a year, was able to start kindergarten at the age of 6. I played basketball, I played baseball, obviously I played soccer, recreational swimming. My parents had me in gymnastics. They had me in art classes, music lessons. So I was very, very well rounded. All those things really help me not feel different. So that was definitely a lot of really character building, human development, as I like to call it. And yeah, the aspect of being an orphan, definitely that drive probably really ignited the flame internally within inside me, as I started to play sports and people started to see that I had it, and it wasn't necessarily the technical aspect of those sports. It was more sort of just being aggressive, and just diving in there and wanting to be the first to get that ball or make that contact. It wasn't until I was about seventh grade or eighth grade, when I really started to catch the soccer bug. I really started to feel like I had it. And honestly, I don't remember what happened. It was one summer, just started to skills started to come. The goals just started to come. Seventh and eighth grade, junior high, those were some pretty key developmental times for me. Back then, when you scored a goal, they would announce it on the announcement at school. So a lot of the students really got to know who I was, and that was kind of the reputation I got for myself early on.
Okay, so let's go take one step back though. You're born which city exactly?
I was born in Sorocaba, in the city of São Paulo.
Okay. So now I'm just curious as a friend. Like literally, how did you get to the States? Was it an agency? Did your
It was an adoption agency that my parents here in the States took the time. I think it was a lengthy process for them that took them outside of the United States. They had a hard time adopting someone within the States. Um, and ironically, as things are today, it's much more difficult to adopt someone internationally than it is to adopt. It's easier to adopt someone, on U.S. soil.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that, but that kind of I
There's
kind of see
there's a
that.
number of controversies, and we're not really gonna get much into it. I'm sure. But people have many opinions. There are a lot of people that will say that people were adopting foreign kids to try to make them elite, whether in like piano or various other things. I never really got that sense from my parents. Like I said, they weren't. They were very much on the sidelines of my sport career. They were never board members, coaches. They were never like volunteers actively involved. They weren't really talking to my coach. They were very much just, hey, my son likes it. My son's good at it. The culture is gonna take care of him. And I understand their perspective from that. Because I had friends of mine that played the popular American handball sports. And they really excelled with those sports. And we'd have a local dad or a local coach or somebody that would say, you know what, that kid's good. And I'm proud that a lot of my friends were able to really make it and go on college and beyond. With soccer, it's much different, where people might have enjoyed spectating a player like myself, but they didn't really have those experiences or those connections. So today, I think we have a lot more of those experiences and connections for players such as myself. So we can say, hey, look at that player. Let's try to see if we can get that player in the right involvement or in right environment. But we also know that with the paid to play environment, people say that maybe players are getting.
Okay, so it cut off. Can you say something to make sure we still have you? So Jesse, let's take an oral history. What I like to do is do an oral history with my guest on literally what soccer was like in their experiences, almost on a visual level when they were growing up. So I want you to paint the picture of, did you play soccer in the neighborhood with kids, or were they playing other sports? Was it a thing? What was your understanding of club soccer and recreational soccer? Was that a thing? You talked a little bit already about your parents' approach to youth sports, just supporting you in what you did, but not being overly involved. But just an oral history, if you were gonna, go back in the day and talk about soccer growing up, and then I like to juxtapose that to what you think kids in your city. Where are you living at now?
I'm just outside Scranton,
Okay,
Pennsylvania.
so what you think the typical experience would be for kids in your city today, and comparing that to what it was like when you were growing up?
Definitely. Growing up, I'm sure a lot of parents would agree. Even those that didn't play soccer, I had a very American experience. Playing backyard football. Man, I remember playing tackle football. I remember even thinking how dangerous that was. It's like, man, like there's a little Brazilian boy playing tackle football. There's no parents around, and people just want to like grab me by the waist and throw me down. I didn't even think there was like any type of technique or form when we were playing. It was like scary. But that was definitely the environment that I grew up in. Tackle backyard tackle football, wiffle ball. Same environment. I remember just thinking like sometimes the player didn't even want to throw it over the base. Like, is this person trying to hit me? So just like that that instinct of survival and trying to play those sports and learning those sports. Basketball, same thing. There's no adults, no referees, so people are saying travel, people are saying walk, people are pushing. It's like, this is not organized at all. And come to think of it, like I love that when it comes to soccer. Not when it gets off hand or dangerous, but the lack of structure or just kind of just going out and doing it. As an adult, I really do like it. But it is funny that as a kid, I do remember playing those sports and having those thoughts. I wish I played a lot more soccer, where there was a lot more soccer opportunities to play. I didn't grow up in, New York, New Jersey, where I hear, friends of mine where they say they can just walk a block or two, and the basketball courts were filled with soccer players. I hear a lot of stories with my mentors and friends that grew up in those areas where soccer was very much affluent. It wasn't really like that for me. It was the popular American handball sports. So my parents had to find those soccer opportunities, and they were indoor. We live, we have snow outside, it's cold. So our indoor opportunities were on basketball courts. We have plenty of basketball courts, and oftentimes they're courts that the basketball players really don't want to use. So they're kind of the older gyms, but hey, it was something. And man, I used to love indoor soccer. This is before futsal really gained its traction. So I remember playing with a big yellow tennis ball. Remember playing with a wall. I remember playing without a wall. So I do remember my parents just signing me up. There was a lot of indoor soccer. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Do you
I'm sure there is a
remember
lot
if
today.
you do you remember if you encouraged your parents to sign you up, or they just looked at it as another activity?
I believe they looked at it as another activity. They probably, no doubt, in the community, people knew that they had a son from Brazil. They adopted from Brazil, so they were probably told, "Get him in soccer, get him in soccer, get him in soccer." So although I played, baseball and basketball and took on some other activities, I pretty much did those when they were in season. And soccer was more so that thing that was a little more year round for whenever the opportunity was available. Probably because, again, Brazilian.
So it's from a macro perspective, and you kind of touched on this, but I want to be super clear.
Nothing.
Let's assume that your parents wanted you to play travel soccer for the purposes of this. Like I grew up in a small town. There was no such thing. There was no soccer, and then there was definitely no travel soccer. And even for baseball, basketball, and football, because my town was so small, we only had recreational sports. And the closest we could get to what would be the equivalent of AAU was in a town that was adjacent, which was a little too far for my parents to commit to compared to how the parents are today. So now that I said that, can you put what you had access to in that framework and then compare that to today, what the kids
Yeah.
have access
So
to?
first start off and saying you're right, there weren't a lot of travel soccer teams back then as there are today. There's a lot more, but we did have a town travel team, and I couldn't get on it for whatever reason. My parents they did want me to play travel soccer. And for my town travel team, I tried out 3 times, and I did not make it 3 years in a row. Probably around like U9, U10, and U11. I remember those 3 tryouts. I even have the memory in my brain, going to tryouts. And back then, it was all about fitness. People want to say who can run, who is strong, who's that kind of stuff. And if I stand up, you'll see I'm not very tall. So that probably definitely played a factor into my selection process. So a lot of the kids that did play within my town travel league, I knew them because they were in my school, and they were very much the American handball athletes, football, baseball, basketball. And Dad was able to kind of create a team or jump on that board and get them into a travel team. I'm not saying that these kids weren't athletic. They were. It's just I think especially from the pattern I see today, that is definitely still prevalent in terms of the who's who and those that play sports, versus, let's say, if we're just in another soccer culture and we're just specifically just looking for soccer players. That's a whole
So
other
so
conversation. But
so then let me
I do
ask
have
you
that
this
memory.
then.
Yep.
Yeah, so then let me ask you this about this. So if you had made that team, what do you think the requirements of terms of how many days a week they would have trained and how many games and how long the season was? What would that have
Very,
been?
very similar to today in terms of twice a week, hour and a half, games on the weekends, maybe 2 or 3 tournaments. It was very similar. I mean, I still remember having that phone call from my dad when he answered the phone and he slammed it down. And I knew right then and there that I didn't make the team. And even though I didn't make that team, and again, I think there was a lot of politics involved. Again, no matter who you knew. My parents were able to um, find a local team outside of our town. So I was picked up I was actually picked up. My parents didn't go out of their way to put me on a team. They put me in an indoor league. And within that indoor league, a coach saw me play, and it was an indoor game. I think I had like seven goals or something crazy. Not that that really, people don't really think that that should matter. But at the youngest ages, anyone who has confidence in the ball, that's a pretty big deal. So I was picked up by a competitive competing travel team, played on that team. And then a year later, I was picked up by another competing travel team. So I kind of got that promotion. And then the following year, and again during this time, I was still trying out for my home team. I wasn't making it. And then the following year, some of those players within my home team, they chose their top sport, which was basketball, or which was baseball. So as those players were falling off of that travel team, that's when those spots were available, and then that's when I was invited to my home travel team. And again, I speak these stories because a lot of these things still are happening very much today. My parents aren't the who's who. They didn't know people within the community, so it was very much a lot of things that we had to really work for on our own.
Yeah. So, did your parents ever talk about the cost and complain about it, or just say, "Oh, this is a lot of money," or was that? And again, I'm trying to juxtapose how they would have perceived the cost of soccer back when you started versus how they would perceive the cost of soccer today, because we're going to get into that conversation at the end.
I honestly don't remember that cost conversation coming up until I was a little bit older and I was interested in international play. Um, but as a young player, I don't think soccer was expensive. I don't think, again, there wasn't that whole lot of teams. There wasn't the leagues, there wasn't a lot of leagues. It was pretty much like Rec Plus, if you will. So that was,
Okay.
especially playing locally.
So,
Yeah.
to your memory, were they volunteers? Were they quote unquote licensed? Did they have
There,
playing experience?
um, volunteers, maybe playing experience in terms of they want their kids to play and now they're kind of just kicking the ball on their own. But no, they didn't play. They're volunteers, and I think a couple of them did end up getting licensed. But we're talking the mid '90s, late '90s. From what I heard with because I have chatted with them, some of those volunteers that were involved when I was younger. And man, that A license, those licenses were much cheaper, much easier to get. I always joke it's like, bought some cereal and then pulled it out of the box.
Okay.
Much different today. So yeah, I respect that. And that's another conversation I'd like to take a moment to talk about. Even though that they were volunteers and didn't have the playing experience, I do theorize that the World Cup of '94 on U.S. soil, right?
Yep.
I think that is what sparked a lot of interest within my class. And when I say my class, I'm not talking about where I specifically grew up. I'm talking about my class of soccer players within New York, New Jersey, California, Texas, those Clint Dempseys, those Landons, they're, roughly about my age. I think the World Cup of '94 really inspired a lot of people to get involved in soccer, learn soccer, start to maybe potentially start scouting soccer. So I think when we start thinking about like those players that were during that time, I think it was because of what was happening in '94. And I think that's when I was able to benefit from that. Because even though I had volunteer coaches that coached me, I don't remember picking on volunteer coaches. People picking on volunteer coaches because back then we were juggling. At 9, 10, 11 years old, we were juggling. We were even playing the game butts up. I wouldn't play that today, but we were playing juggling as a butts up. That when you failed with your juggles, then you had to bend over and people were shooting at you. Again, wouldn't do that today, but the emphasis on juggling was very much there. I know people don't like cone lines, but I remember cone drills, cone drills, cone drills, cone drills, cone drills. I know people don't like small sided games, but I just remember that over and over and over and over. The indoor scene, I hear a lot of people say, "Man, I can't wait till we get outside. I can't wait till we get outside." But I just remember that over and over and over and over. And again, just this free play of the multi-sport on our own in the neighborhoods. So it seems like a lot of the things that people really don't like or don't do today's were a lot of things that really I benefited from as a kid.
Yeah. So you answered the other question I was going to ask is if you had to juxtapose a typical practice back then to what you're understanding now, what's the saying, what's different? And yeah, I think, and I express my opinion about sort of unopposed technical training, the role it can have in development and stuff in my podcast. So we're not going to go down that rabbit hole now.
Can I
Fast
mention the
forwarding.
difference of what's happening today? Well,
Oh
I,
yeah,
that
go ahead, please.
so I think the reason why I mentioned my and thank you for bringing up how I remember soccer practice. Um, from what I'm seeing today in trying to replicate what I went through as in my youth years from those coaches, what I went through as a older player, and then I also have as a coach, my experience as a coach educator. So I think I have different lenses to really think about this. So when I go into my environment, I'm thinking about what let's start off with a maybe something cone. Let's transition to unopposed, and then let's transition to like maybe a 1v1. Um, to me that seems standard. And I've learned today that not even within our sport, I have parents telling me that even within basketball, for example, people are saying, why are they teaching my kid tactics? Why is my daughter being just spread out or on the field all over the court and just being taught all these complex things? So when I'm hearing parents here talk about that within the other sports, I definitely see that also within soccer, where I'll look at a field of 7, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds. It's like, why are they standing around? Why are they standing still? Why is coach talking for 5, 10, 15 minutes? And so that definitely is very, very prevalent within the soccer scene. And I'd like to see a lot more play, a lot more in structure, a lot more just touches.
So when you talk about a lot more touches, can you go into detail what a session would, and we're going to get back on track, but I find this particularly interesting, what a session would look like that you put on that ensures that kids get a lot of touches, especially at those foundational ages, versus things that you hear about and see. And you kind of alluded to it, but I want to put this in a bow.
Right. And simply said, because I know people have various opinions, but to put it in a simple point here, I start off with 1:1 or 1-to-1, 1:1. And if I was to say that to you, you're a soccer guy. What does that mean? 1:1.
The
One
ball.
player has a ball. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about there. One player to one ball, and you can think of it however you want to think about it, whether you're thinking about a group of 10, 11, 12-year-olds, or whether you're thinking about a group of 3 or 4 or 5-year-olds. I'm not gonna try to tell you how to run that session, but I I do suggest 1:1, one player, one ball. When you move on through that, my next suggestion is, can you move on to a 1 versus 0? What does that look like? So again, I'm not going to tell you what to coach or what to do. You'll learn that I've had so much friction that I really don't want to tell people what to do. It's just all suggestions. So from that 1:1, I move on to 1v0. And so now that they've had that proficiency with the ball, with every player has a ball, now then can they try to pretend to execute a move against 0 defenders? And that could be literally no defenders. It could just be a cone, or it could be a person dribbling, running towards them, but not playing live defense. It's not live at all. And then we move on from that 1v0 to an actual 1v1. I'm seeing some coaches now are actually starting to practice with 1v1s, which that's awesome to see that trend now. And then obviously from that 1v1, I like to go into 1v2, giving emphasis on the two, to really give them those goal scoring opportunities. Usually that defender is gonna say, "Oh, coach, this is unfair." Calm down, 7 or 8-year-old kid. That's okay for right now. We're not really covering defending. And then we go into 2v2. So then now you can start talking about some 2v2. Now that defender has a helper, and then you get into 3v2 again, giving that the advantage to that 3 side, so that's success. And then eventually you move on to 3v3, and then defensively, when you're talking about defense again, now you're talking about I always say peanut butter cookies, pressure, balance, cover. And then we're moving into those 4v4s. That's when we're talking about diamonds and then beyond. And I think I suggest not moving on to that 4v4 and beyond until that player is U12, U13. So when I'm working with a recreational organization and parents of volunteer coaches, I'm really helping them. Hey, with the youngest age groups, 1-to-1. Next group up, 1v0. Next group up, 1v1. And then for those that really ask, like, how do we do it? I'm more than happy to kind of give in and detail how to do it. What does a full training session look like? Then 100% full on doing it. I just learned that people really don't like to be, told, which is interesting. Especially like if I don't know something, if I didn't grow up doing something, if I seriously have no idea, I really want to learn from somebody that has done it and has known. And with soccer, there's a lot of people that don't know and haven't played, yet they have the confidence that they have with playing the American handball sports. And not to go off into the weeds too much, but I've realized that the connection with passing, when people do get interested in soccer and they watch on TV, as I'm watching right now, when you're watching a player control the ball and dribble, pass, and that player passing, that player passing, that player is passing it, it might be to the untrained eye, to that new player, the new person, that new volunteer, they might not see what it takes to really bring that ball down and to really drive while you're, holding off a defender, to really pass that ball with a driven pass, to really control that ball out of the air, to really, all these little moments. I would say every moment matters. If I could put a sign on a stick and go down to the courthouse square, every moment matters. That's my slogan. So that is and I truly believe all those little moments are so very special. And I think people look at the lens of those American handball sports where you catch that ball with the hands, you do an action, then you release. And I think because of our familiarity with those sports and just knowing how important that is, not having been born in this country, I learned what it was to be in elementary school, middle school, pass that little ball around, say your name, pass that ball around, catch it, say your name, say something about yourself, catch it. And if you drop that ball, people will giggle. And I remember being in the recess playing football with friends. If you drop that ball, people, I remember dropping the ball in recess. No one passed the football to me ever again. That's probably when I started. That's when I started playing soccer at recess because I stopped getting the football passed to me. And then, believe it or not, people started joining me playing soccer, and then that became the soccer culture. But anyway, that's what I think happens with our sport. People don't see what it takes, ball control. And unfortunately, when I talk about technical skills, people want to talk about circus skills and flips and tricks and being fancy. And honestly, I just want you to simply control the ball with inside the foot, drive with the defender on you, pass. These things are hard. And when I'm working with 15, 16-year-old players, if they can do those things at speed, then yeah, I will back up a little bit and work on those things. And you probably know, Neil, people don't want to see that. They don't want to see that. My kid.
So hold on, Jesse. You're throwing a lot out there. Jesse, I'm sorry to interrupt. You're throwing a lot out there, so I want to recalibrate this. I've been taking some notes. First of all, there's power in language. So I love the fact you say one to one with the ball. I love 1v0 as opposed to unopposed technical work because unopposed has such negative connotations at times. So I like that, if that helps someone. And then it also emphasizes that you're still doing soccer actions. You're just doing it against no resistance or a moving object or a static object, depending on what they're saying, but you're still doing soccer actions in some respects. So I love that. But what I was going to ask, if I'm a rec coach listening, what constraints, if any, do you put into your 3v3 and 4v4 to help with learning outcomes that you're looking for?
I'm still a proponent of play, practice, play. So letting the players play as they arrive. If there's one kid, then have a pass with him, pass back and forth. And then if there's two kids, like, hey guys, pass with each other. And as they arrive, usually you can get a small little two, then 4 players 2v2, and then they're playing on their own. So I like that scrimmage to happen. When that happens, that gives coach the time to start coaching the tactics of the game, the rules of the game. When we're saying 1-to-1 or 1v1 or 1v0 or 2v2s, a lot of new soccer people want to say, when do we get into the rules? When do we get into the tactics? When do we get to exploiting the flanks? Why? How do we know to bring our players more compact when the team is attacking? And it's just amazing to hear these things again. I had volunteer coaches in the mid '90s, early '90s, and I don't remember them ever talking about these things. And I again referenced the World Cup '94 and the proper education that came out and how affordable it was. It's probably really affordable for people to get that education. So nowadays there definitely is that bit of a struggle of really trying to dial that back a little bit.
But let me throw something at you, Jesse, and I'm gonna say this: don't be agreeable just because you being my friend. You can give me feedback, okay, positive or negative, okay. Let's say that I'm coaching 10-year-olds, and we're doing 3v3, okay. We playing, and then because this is one of the things I talk about in the podcast, I'm actually gonna do another show on this. And then I say, okay, on the wings, you can't. So it's 3v3 in the center. And on the wings, there's 2 players that run up and down the channel. Now, the ball, they have to touch the ball. Those 2 players have to touch the ball. They're neutral. They have to touch the ball before you can score. But the defenders cannot leave the out of bounds and take the ball from them. So they have as much time as they want. And then I'm going to throw one more thing at you because I just want to get your comment. I layer this on, but I want to get your comment on this piece as well. You remember we talked about 3v3, and you already said you don't like going over that over a certain age. So you can elaborate why you don't want to do that. But then let's say I introduce a goalkeeper as well for each. So now it's 3v3, but plus the keeper. And then I say the keeper can get the ball when the keeper has to touch the ball before you can score. And for the purposes of this, no one can take the ball from the keeper, or the keeper has 5 seconds or something like that. So now remember, you have the two neutrals on the wing. You can't take the ball from them. You have the keeper. The keeper gets at least 5 seconds, because one of the challenges that I had is, if you have a keeper, like they never touch the ball, they never really part of the action. So then that was a way for me, you know, uh, coaching license on Google, Masters of Science on Facebook, to kind of teach with and blah, blah, blah in some organization, but without telling them all the time. Even though, and I get criticized for this, they won't understand exactly why am I, in their minds, they're thinking, I got to get it to these guys wide so that I can go score. It's just a rule. Over time, I'm hoping they see, and we talk about it a little bit, you're creating space for yourself when you do that. What do you do once you release that ball? What runs can you make? So now that I said that, you see me doing this. Do you come to me and say, Neil, stop? Or I like what you're doing, but change this? Or what's your reaction? Don't just be nice to me. Let's talk.
I'm going to, for the sake of this conversation, you're 45 minutes into your activity. And you had already introduced in the beginning of practice, hey guys, welcome to practice, blah, blah, blah. After they did their little warm-up play, hey, what we're going to work on today is we're going to try to see if we can get the ball to the wings. That'll be our topic today, is playing the ball to the outside. And then later on, we're going to see if we can get our goalkeeper involved. Can our goalkeeper get involved, and then play the ball to the outside with our goalkeeper? That's going to be our topic for today. I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing in, again, in my lens, is a group of 7, 8, 9-year-olds. If they're proficient enough, you've had them maybe for about couple of weeks, maybe a year. They're doing the practice play. You're including the technical exercises within the activity. But I think it is good to bring them group. Hey, welcome back to soccer practice. If it's not the first soccer, usually first soccer practice, welcome to soccer practice. We're gonna learn basic soccer skills. Well, we have to move on from that, right? So weeks have gone by. Maybe a year's gone by. Hey guys, today our topic is. So that's what. But we're still. My suggestion is still having that little bit of play in the beginning. If we're looking at 7, 8, 9-year-olds, we're still having that technical warm up. If we did introduce that playing to the outside, then maybe we're got some sort of diamond scenarios where the ball is down here, and we're really talking to these players out here. How do they receive the ball? What are they doing with their hips? Which foot are they playing to? And then boom, so you're still technical. You're still introducing that outside. And then you expand the activity, and now boom, the ball falls here. We're playing the ball to this person. You're adding those stipulations as you just discussed. Boom, all right, guys, we're doing great. Now we're gonna turn this into almost like a small sided game. Goalkeeper. Same stipulation with our wing players. Hey, goalkeeper, this is the stipulation that you have. Boom, and that's where I'm thinking that you're 45 minutes into your session. The players are doing this. Look at your watch. Wow, guys, you guys did a great job on this. We were pretty successful going out to the wide. Goalkeeper pretty successful going out. You know what? We have 10 minutes left, 12 minutes left. You guys, let's just play. We're going to play less. We're going to scrimmage, but hey, nothing sloppy. We got to this point. Keep it clean. Can we still think about the things that we were working on today? Goalkeeper, can we still look to distribute to the outside? Wing players, can we still keep our back to the outside and look for our options going up and down? Players in the middle, we're not going to get lost. We know what our topic was today. So how are we going to move off the ball to make these things happen? So boom, I got in, I got out. I'm going to let the players just play, and so that's what I'm assuming that's part of the session that you were in, and that's kind of what you walked out and are allowing them to do.
Yeah, Jesse.
Sometimes what I do see, Neil, is people will start a session with like literally the kids just showed up out of the cars, and boom, now we're talking about that. I recently had a friend of mine that would say, "Hey, Jess, you know what? I know you work with 7, 8-year-old kids, but like there's just this thing I can do with kids. I can so just hear me out, Jesse. I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that. Like 3, 4, 5 minutes has gone by. He's trying to explain it to me. And I said to him, I was like, look, I respect what you're saying. I understand it. But if it took you that long to explain it to me, imagine you're just fresh with a group of 7, 8-year-old kids that are maybe cold. Their shin guards are just halfway on, their shoelaces aren't tied. You're dealing with that and explaining it. So what can we do to get in and get out as they stay in the coaching world?
Okay, so Jesse, what we're gonna do, I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions, and then we're gonna wrap this up and do a part 2, because
Yeah,
part 2,
I'm loving this, Neil. Really.
yeah. So part 2 is going, because it's so different, such different topics. So part two is going to be talking more about sort of your view on the trends that are happening in U.S. soccer, affordability, that kind of stuff. So we almost done. So
what was the first part you just? I'm sorry. The
so part two is just going to be more about the state of soccer and
yeah.
some of the conversations we have and your opinion on that. So we almost done with this, but one of the things I got from you, which I actually don't do a very good job at all, I have a sense of urgency because I don't have very much time with the kids. So I don't take a deep breath and explain to them what we're about to do and greet them and that kind of thing. And that's one point I need to work on. And then the second thing is making sure you get those touches and you build up to this and don't frustrate them. Now, here is where I'm agreeing with you 1,000,000,000%. What happens is, and this has been my experience, a lot of times our recreational coaches, and this is just anecdotal, I don't want anybody to jump on me. This is just my lived experiences. They see something in the game or they want something to happen in the game, and then they try to pack all of that into a practice, and they try to verbally explain it. They waste so much time. The kids are not necessarily enjoying it. No one really understands what they're trying to accomplish, and they just waste a lot of valuable time. So one of my biggest things to my recreational coaches is focusing on the right thing and not wasting a lot of time. Those are huge. So let me ask you some random questions about your view on it, okay? Give me some quick answers because we're wrapping it up. Random questions, just give me your initial thoughts on these things. This is like a game show. You ready?
Yep.
Passing patterns. Do you like them?
Triangles and diamonds. But just don't emphasize passing too much. I still think ball control is important.
All right. Now, I listened to a coach just say, hey, I like to use passing patterns to help kids understand patterns of play, give and go. That would be making a run. Do you have a philosophical problem with that? With the qualification that you really want people to focus on the ball?
This individual, I'm assuming, works with an MLS academy and has the players that are capable of executing those skills.
Okay, I'm gonna call it the next hot bucket issue. I'm gonna call it unopposed technical training that people say you should be doing it at home. Ball mastery, figure eight dribbling. Are you opposed? Are you diametrically opposed to doing any of that in a team session, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes? What are your thoughts?
I love it all, Neil. I love unopposed. I love playing at home. I love multi sports. I love people playing other sports. I do love it all.
But I'm gonna put you on the spot. Unopposed technical training for some portion of soccer practice in the team environment. So, there's schools of thought, and one school of thought is, hey, no, we can get that, and we can get those touches in such a limited amount of time. If it's a team environment, we're going to do something that, like I use my air quotes, this is game realistic. How do you feel about toe taps, TikToks, inside, outside, solo rolls for a portion of practice in team training? Is
Again, from my
that a
lens of seven,
non-starter?
8, 9, like my lens is a 7, 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-old coach. That's awesome. That's how we start practice.
Okay. The next one, rondos. When, where, how? What is your typical, immediate response to when you hear the word rondos?
I have a U10 group that was proficient enough to execute rondo. So even though I like play, our initial play became the rondo. So that's how when the players come up to practice, that's what they do.
All right. And here's the final question. And this one is very subjective, and I'm going to try to ask it the right way. I feel like in the UK, where I have experience living there, grassroots soccer is an extension. It's just the first step of development. First of many steps. It's not perceived necessarily as recreational in the way as a separate entity in the way it is in the States, in my opinion. It's, in other words, you could very well have a grassroots coach who starts with his kids at age 6 and they work them way up in the various divisions. And that coach doesn't view this as, oh, I'm just going to have these kids for 8 weeks and we're going to move on. There are recreational players, but the culture around grassroots is you could possibly get signed for academy. So I'm preparing you like there's scouts here. That's how I characterize it in the UK, and folks from the UK can chime in. I feel like in the States, grassroots has been relegated to, I just want to have a kickabout and I got my shin guards outside of my socks. And if I want to do anything in the game of soccer beyond this, I have to go to a travel team. What are your thoughts on what I just said? And what are your overarching thoughts on if you could wave a magic wand? Because that's going to lead into part 2. What role do you want grassroots soccer recreational soccer in the States to play in U.S. soccer and youth soccer development in general?
I've very much been just educating, our volunteers and parents, letting them know kind of what we do in our free time. What do you do in our free time? What's going on in our free time? And they understand the sports that they're watching, Monday night football, Thursday night, Sunday night, the World Series, March Madness. We People are starting to understand kind of their energy of what they put in when they're not at soccer, and us coaches oftentimes is, hey, my kid's here, what can we do in this time? And we're thinking, 1-to-1, 1v1, 1v0. We know we can't cram everything all at once. We know it's a process. But for that person that's bringing their child to soccer practice once or twice a week, and then nothing is really happening at home outside of that, that's the part that's a disconnect where people really have to understand why are they not developing. In our area, if you play those top American handball sports and you're being coached by a local volunteer or a local parent, you're in good hands, I would say. Even if you're not playing travel, but with recreational soccer, people don't feel that way.
But coach, why? But what if someone came to you and said, "Coach, it's why are you talking about 1v1 and ball mastery and ball control? Why are you talking? It's just for fun." What is going to be your response to that?
Since you went to UK, I think you'll appreciate this. When I took my U13 team to England this past last spring, they were coached by West Ham United, so I had the chance to really take a step back and had those professional coaches. So my parents got a chance to see a professional coach that wasn't me coach their players. Those players were being coached with juggling. Those players were being coached with ball mastery, small-sided games, little relays. In their free time, my players were picking up the ball and bouncing it with their hands, and I have a pretty good group here in the States, but those West Ham United coaches, they tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Jesse, when the players were bouncing the ball with their hands, they're like, what they're doing with the ball with their hands is what they need to be doing with the ball with their feet in their free time." And I said to them, that is exactly the translation I'm trying to let people understand.
Guys, I sat down with Jesse Nova, who is a recreational and grassroots coach. He also mentors coaches and players and organizes free play and other opportunities for kids to play in a unstructured way in the sort of that Scranton, PA area. Jesse, it's been great talking to you. We're going to jump back on for part 2, where we get your opinion on the state of youth soccer in the U.S. and what are some opportunities that you're seeing that can make our beautiful game even more accessible, and with a higher degree of development going forward. Guys, my name is Neil Crawford. I'm the founder of Anytime Soccer Training and also the host of the Inside Scoop. Let's get better together.